Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Flash issue 4 by Jeff Lemire, A.L. Kaplan and Chris Sotomayor. Wally West's journey to gain control over his powers continues as his mind is plagued with a vision of looking into his mother's grave. Thanks to his anxiety, he jumps through time again, but this time he arrives at the grave again, and instead of his mother inside of it, Barry inhabits it. Barry's Speed Force ravaged corpse reaches out and screams for Wally to help him, causing the boy to wake from his nightmare. As I've said before, Lemire's take on the Speed Force and how it's almost like a curse bestowed upon Wally and is tied to his anxiety, causing him to relive many of his painful moments of his life is just so fucking cool. It makes it so much bigger than just speed powers, and it's right in line with a world that was created by Darkseid. Of course, the Speed Force is going to feel like a curse. So as it turns out, this was all just a nightmare, and Wally snaps awake just before sunrise in a park where he and Grodd have spent the night. Grodd comforts Wally, touching his mind with his powers to quiet it, and the duo set off from the park and into Iron Heights, the rundown district of Central City. So this is pretty cool and a fun reimagining for Iron Heights as a poor part of town instead of a prison, which I guess itself can be interpreted as a prison for its inhabitants. You know, a poor neighborhood, you know, having a grip on the people who live there. They can't seem to ever get out of it. There's no like running from it. It's a great fucking interpretation of some classic Flash lore. Wally, who is technically homeless right now, heads to one of the city's shelters offering food. While in line, he meets a tall man who asks how old he is, which, you know, is kind of a fucking weird question to be asking kids on the street of, you know, a poor rundown city. But this is actually a kind of good thing, because in a nice surprise, the man isn't some serial killer or villain after Wally. It's just only fucking Ralph Dibny, the elongated man, who tells Wally that if he's under 18, he can stay at the youth mission he and his wife Sue run down the block. Not only do we get introduced to Ralph, but also Linda Park briefly shows up to warn Wally of Ralph's dad jokes. The sudden tone change here is great. So up until now, we've kind of had dealt with nothing but, you know, death, pain, misery. It's just been quite miserable for Wally. And here is kind of the first bit of like kindness and love he's felt in a long while. And of course, he doesn't particularly know how to deal with it. You know, he's rightfully suspicious of this kind of weird man offering him a place to stay in the city. Ralph leaves Wally with his business card as back out at the desert, a group of Project Olympus scientists take readings from an energy vortex that Wally left in his wake when he entered the time stream. The rogues are put on standby as the scientists do their research, but they tell Colonel West that the energy in the vortex is exactly the same as what was on Wally. Rudy West, while hasn't been in the book all that much, has really been kinda a piece of shit character. He's not been very nice to his son. I do feel like this is him trying to atone for that. I figure we're probably going to get kind of like the classic dad trope where, you know, he sees all this horrible shit happening to and around his son and is going to try and help him in some way and betray the company he works for, you know, the government or anything, and that's going to put him on someone's hit list, and maybe Wally has to come in and save him, and maybe he even gets some sort of redemption arc as well. Colonel West orders the rogues to resupply and get ready to roll out as soon as Wally is sighted, demanding that they find his son. West soon returns to Fort Fox to get to the bottom of what Barry's experiment was doing and what it did to Wally. As the rogues deploy, Wally has decided to go to the Dibny mission, and as he's eating in the cafeteria, Linda approaches him again, asking if she can sit with him, and Wally agrees to, talking with the girl. This is kind of a neat interaction because this is obviously the first time in a while Wally has actually interacted with someone who does not want to kill him or wants to, you know, figure out what his powers are or is some sort of Speed Force corpse. So it's just like a normal interaction between these two kids, and of course Wally is still, you know, very guarded and doesn't really trust anyone, especially someone new coming into his life. But I like how Linda, who usually is an author or a journalist or a writer, is able to sort of worm her way into past his tough exterior to learn a little bit more about him. There's also a great line where Linda says that she knows he's not from Iron Heights, since he still has hope in his eyes, which kind of really says a lot about what the hell is wrong with Iron Heights. You know, it's a place that kind of drains the life out of people. It's a prison, more or less. Linda knows that they are all running from something, but Wally doesn't have to worry about Ralph and Sue Dibney, since they are good people for a change. Wally turns the tables a little on Linda and asks what she's running from, but Linda kind of seizes up and doesn't answer, instead just leaving her food for Wally before taking off from the table. Later, as Wally settles into his dorm, Ralph comes to see him, offering up a welcome pack of toothpaste, soap, and a few other amenities he'll need. It's been such a long fucking time since we've actually gotten this Ralph. You know, he's appeared here and there in some Justice League comics, but he's never really been a focus of something or like a part of a story like this in a very long time. And I have really missed him. I know this is like obviously the Absolute Universe version of him, so he's a little different, but he still has that kind of fun uncle vibe about him, you know, someone who's there to help and will listen to you. And I hope nothing bad happens to this Ralph. I hope nothing bad happens to Sue in this universe, which is usually what happens. Usually Sue is murdered, and hopefully they become sort of mainstay characters in this book. Ralph tells Wally of the house rules and how everyone pitches in to help with cooking and cleaning. After he leaves, Wally telepathically asks Rod if he thinks it's a safe place to stay for a while, but Rod doesn't reply. Wally checks his backpack, but Rod isn't in it, having escaped out of a nearby window and off into the depths of Iron Heights. At Fort Fox, Colonel West investigates the ruins of Barry Allen's lab, looking for anything to tell him what has become of his son. Here we're introduced to a character who is probably going to be quite important, as Eleanor Thorne comes in, and Rudy asks what the focus of her and Barry's research was. So this is actually the second Thorne we've gotten. As we saw in the last couple of issues, there's a man also working under Colonel West with that name as well. I do wonder if this universe has multiple Thorns running around at the same time, and maybe they're all Reverse Flash, or they all become Reverse Flash in some way. We also learn a little bit more about what Barry was doing, as we learned that Eleanor was actually working with Barry in his research program, and not only that, they were partnered with Lazarus Corps, same Lazarus Corps that's in Absolute Superman and is being run by Ra's al Ghul. This is a pretty big connection, and one these books seldom have done so far, but makes me wonder, like, what is Ra's doing with the Speed Force? Like, what did he want to find with the Speed Force, or like experiments with time travel? What was he up to? Eleanor also reveals that she was working on all of the Speed Force experiments, but also the tech the Rogues have been using, something Rudy knows all about, but doesn't know where it all came from. Eleanor stonewalls Rudy, keeping him at arm's length about what he needs to know and what he doesn't know. I'm actually really liking this Thorne, one who's worked alongside Barry on his research and was his partner more or less, something that oftentimes Eobard has wanted to become but never did, and that's kind of what sent him down the path of being a villain, because Barry never really saw him as an equal or wanted really anything to do with him. Eleanor reveals that Wally has become their most successful experiment yet, and this is where Rudy really gets mad, hating that his son is being called a test subject since he's only a teenager. I'm glad Rudy is having that turn where it's now clear that he's doing this all for his son and not just, you know, trying to find the research or trying to cover his job or anything. He's actually caring about his son. Thorne casually replies here that they know where Wally is because they've been tracking Grodd and have been this entire time, so it's up to them to now find them. Rudy says that he'll leave with the Rogues immediately, but Thorne tells him that Wally isn't the only thing running around in the night, as Barry's accident released a bunch of other experiments, as she shows Rudy a room full of destroyed containment units, hinting at more powered beings being freed. Now these are some of the powered beings we've seen before. We saw some in that special Absolute Universe special with Mirror Master. He saw a couple, and we saw some in the first issue as well at the end of the issue. But here we get some new ones teased, like Firestorm and Weather Wizard. Both are two I can't wait to see how the Absolute Universe has changed them, because we saw what Heatwave looked like, and he's completely different. He's a man made out of giant lava rocks, so I'm intrigued to see what Weather Wizard has become. Wally meanwhile chases Grodd into the city sewers, telepathically calling out for the monkey to stop. So one thing I haven't mentioned up until now, because it's really not been mentioned all that much except for once really at the start of the issue, and that is Iron Heights is unbelievably hot at the moment. Wally makes reference to how the city is quite hot, and Ralph also makes reference to them not having an aircon in the mission or anything anything. And there's a reason for that, as it's Heatwave who has been doing this, as Grodd reveals to Wally that Heatwave is down in the sewers, and his heat that is emanating off of his lava body is causing their city to heat up something fierce. And you get a cool shot of Heatwave and finally a good look of him, and yeah, he's just like a big rock golem covered in lava and fire. It's a very cool look. Absolute Flash issue 4 continued Wally's story in a very cool way and introduced some very fun new characters for his cast, and I love that Ralph Dibny is now a character in this book and is going to exist in the Absolute Universe, and I pray to God that nothing bad happens to him and his wife. The introduction of Heatwave as Wally's first kind of big villain he'll have to fight as the Flash is quite cool. Is a classic Flash villain. I like the look of him as well. I also like what they are doing with Linda Park and how she's like the first person to kind of show Wally some sort of, semblance of kindness, or just like kind of treat him like a kid and treat him like a normal person and not view him as like a freak or anything. Very cool stuff happening here from Jeff Lemire, and I can't wait to see more of it. I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10.